More alien stuff to wrap your brain around. Yesterday, I was listening to Redacted. Redacted is reasonably, it's a reasonable. The two, Clayton Morris and his wife, present news events, and the top of their list yesterday was about a whistleblower conference with the Greer guy, the Greer guy who's been in the wings about the UFO issue for decades, maybe 40 years. Okay, so these people have been in the system on the UFO question for a long time, and now, they're allowed to have a conference in Washington, I think it was, and the whistleblowers that come out. Now, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle between the Clayton and his wife. He was reacting. I didn't think it was a big deal, but she thought it was a big deal when people were calling them nutbags, talking about this as though there's UFO activity and all this, and people in the chat, I don't know what their motivation was to criticize the report. He was just reporting. They're just reporting on this event, and people said, oh yeah, the alien, you nutter, you crazy person. And he was defending himself, saying, no, I've been researching this, and you people shouldn't shout at me. And she says, hey, take a breath. She's good cop, bad cop, or vice versa. And they're going back and forth with each other about this divisive issue about UFOs. Well, that's the idea, people. The idea is to have a divisive kind of situation again, like the shit show during the COVID shit show. Everybody was divided. Not everybody, but a large portion of the population. The herd was hammering those that understood there's something wrong here. Will Robinson, danger. There's something wrong here. This doesn't make sense. So they were going at each other, and they made up, and it was like a nice, and maybe sincerely, she was saying she wanted to protect him, not to feel so victimized by the trolls in the chat and all this kind of thing. And well, that's the idea behind the UFO thing. Now, I'm going to have a few more thoughts on this alien stuff. One of the things, what was I going to say? I deviate from my intention, my thoughts, and it goes out of my mind now. So they were presenting this conference, whistleblower conference. I don't think it was sanctioned, but the fact that it happened is really interesting, because for the last 50 years, nothing has really been exposed on this topic. And I'd like to remind everyone that the phony moon landing garbage stuff, supposedly there were like 40,000 people working in this within the context of this program, this NASA hoax of sending somebody to the moon through the vacuum of space with a tin can that would have just, if you look at how a vacuum just totally implodes something completely, if you put like I saw this video somebody did of a boxcar, or it was like one of these drums, like these chemical, really fortified, circular, round tube thing, that they created a vacuum inside this tube, and it just collapsed. It crushed in on itself. So can you imagine the amount of strength that would be required to send a spaceship into the vacuum of space? It would have to be fortified to such an extent, probably like I said, titanium, 6 feet of titanium reinforced something or other, steel with lead, but whatever. So, of course, you think about shit like this, makes no sense, but you say, well, there were 40,000 people involved in creating this magnificent event, in pulling off this magnificent event of sending a couple of guys or 3 guys up there, and 2 landed supposedly, and 40,000. How can 40,000 people? Well, this is a curious phenomenon, how there's a kind of mass psychosis, like there is a herd element to all of these operations. As reality unfolds, it's never as it appears to be. And it should be more clear than ever with the COVID shit show that reality is not as it appears to be. We're asked to accept things that make no sense. And the more we accept, the more we slide into this area, this kind of oblivion kind of sense of what it means to be a human being. No thought, no spirit, no interest, no imagination, only a regurgitation of the company line. And people who may be sincerely accepting, or let's say who are sincere in their intentions, they feel honest about their reporting, like this Redacted. I'm going to give the benefit, although I have my doubts now. Reporting, I think we're just reporting on something. We're not making a judgment. She's saying, no, it's just a report. It's not. Well, you have to also question the timing of this report. All of a sudden, after 50, 60 years or longer, 80 years of Area 21, 51, all that stuff, well, it's perfectly all right now. And we still don't really have the answers, or we have never been exposed to the truth about the towers being brought down or Kennedy or any of that stuff. But this is allowed to happen now. Maybe it's old enough. I don't know. There's a reason behind it. That's what I'm saying. This alien stuff now is ratcheting up. And I think for good reason, this alien stuff is ratcheting up. And this confusion and this animosity and this kind of split feeling that people have towards each other, like this husband and wife are split. They're actually being able to have an argument over something that is so ridiculous. Some conference about whistleblowers saying, we are part of an organization that totally undermined us, and we saw things that appear to be such and such, and it's like, we don't know. We just don't know. We're just sort of part of something, but we don't know. Well, I'm saying people are part of stuff, and they may not know, or they may know, the subversion behind the reality that we're asked to accept in some form or other through a news report, or even through our own eyes, the evidence, like some terrestrial, or let's say what appears extraterrestrial object floating and inexplicable. Well, the complexity of things are such that once we understand complexity, then it's perfectly rational, and we understand. That's what it means. Complexity is there for us to be puzzled about something, right? So until we understand the complexity behind something, we tend to be herded into this sort of reactionary state, fright and flight kind of state. And the fact that there were 40,000 people involved in the so-called moon landing, it was all compartmentalized, I suppose, and it happened for every single one of those 40,000. There were probably maybe 10 that knew it was garbage, but the others thought it actually happened. So it's a kind of herd mentality, and I think the same thing is happening with this alien stuff now. And the reason, I think I mentioned in my last video on the alien stuff, the reason it's happening is I have this sense, it's not really intuitive, it's just like what I'm picking up from certain people that I listen to, how they're ratcheting up this report around the alien stuff, that it's there for a reason, and obviously it'll distract from much more important issues like, well, yeah, this Ukraine conflict could actually escalate in some form or other, although I have a feeling that the people behind the curtain, not the front people, not the Putins and the all the presidents and the prime ministers, all these types are front people for some kind of the manipulation that goes on is done by people we don't know and will never know, and for good reason, because they don't want their heads chopped off if anything goes wrong in their plan. In other words, that it's like in history when Louis XIV and the French Revolution and Robespierre, and there was an extreme reaction to the abuses that people suffered. And then the abuses were carried on by the people that got rid of the abusers. They became the abusers, old boss, new boss. But what I'm saying is this, this is like a kind of tug of war between the front men that represent this tiny oligarchy that nobody really knows who it is, that are pulling the strings and making things go a certain way. And is it in their interest to create the nuclear the nuclear holocaust that everybody is afraid of now? Is this something that these degenerates would actually bring upon themselves? It's possible. They're so psychotic that if they had the ability to just end life as we know it, would they do it? Are they psychotic? I'm convinced they're psychotic, but is there a self-preservation there? I suspect there is, so I don't think it will go that far, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be horrible. I mean, these people, there is no restraint. It's kind of like I have the ability to do something and I don't have a conscience, so just because I can do something, I'll do it. Sort of that Crowley idea. Do as thou wilt. So my thoughts on this, after listening to the Redacted guys yesterday, getting all sort of their knickers in a knot about this, it is an indication. It's not what they were reporting, but how they were reporting it. And I think this is, for me, it's an indication that this is escalating now probably more rapidly than not in some form or other. So the PSYOP will be an alien PSYOP. It's not going to be a virus PSYOP. It'll be an alien PSYOP. And the extent to which this can be done in a way that is convincing, like at the time, the moon landing. Now, the moon landing, they can't do again. They've not gone back because we're not fooled. We cannot be fooled by the CGI. The CGI, as Elon has said, it looks so fake, it must be real. You see, this is another truth drop or an indicator that in fact is all a put on. And he said so by ridiculing people that question the quality and what it is that we're confronted with. It's like people questioning. We cannot be fooled. That's why they've not gone back until they're convinced they can pull it off on a herd bunch that, you know, at least 90% would go along. There's going to be 10% that can never be fooled. Maybe a few more. I don't know. So this alien thing will be pulled off in some version or other because they're building up to it. I think they have a plan that would actually be quite convincing, even to people like me, that I would look up in the heavens and I would say, my God, this looks really real. But then I'll remind myself about stuff like the moon landing, and I'll be able to pull back, and whatever elements there might be, curiosity, fear, anger, whatever that stuff is going to be in people, needs to be curtailed and pulled back, and just kind of like with a sense of reality is not what it appears to be kind of attitude. So we're obviously being confronted with reports, and the news is terrible, especially when it comes to the carnage that is going on in Europe with Ukraine, and the obvious, the conclusion I have about that. Sensible people talk about it all the time, like the Duran and you know, other guests that they have that articulate and analyze the situation clearly and say this could all be resolved very quickly if certain fundamental notions of safety and all that toward the national security would be, but it doesn't matter. You see, national security and all that shit is irrelevant to the people behind the curtain. The people behind the curtain will have mantras and whatever narratives and speeches they may give to the front people. There is a plan, and the plan isn't like 10-year plan, it's 100, it's a 200-year plan, it's adjusted. I'm convinced of this. There is like a long, culture is a record of the plan. That's how I look at it. And the fact that there are highlights in culture is a tribute to the human spirit, not to the bastards who are running these operations out of the back rooms, the fact that people like myself and other creative souls on earth and talented people that can actually push their spirit to the limits and produce, a Bach violin concerto or whatever, or the cello suites, whatever you want to call it, what you attach yourself to, that's a highlight in human development. This is incidental to culture. It's not actually the backbone of culture, because the backbone of culture, I'm talking about the bastards, and the reality that is not what it appears to be, has been orchestrated over time. It has been orchestrated to the extent that people are divided in nations. And I'm not entirely opposed to the diversity of nations, but the division among people is part of the orchestration. So to hold things against each other, depending on, whether it's race or nationality, whatever, or religion, this is always held against someone. People feel like special because they have an attachment to a certain kind of attitude or belief system. So my point is this alien shit is being ratcheted up for a reason. I think this is quite possible that there have been suggestions that humanity, people, as much as they're fooled quite easily, like we saw with the COVID shit show, how easily it was to fool people in the 21st century, how people could just resort or revert into this sort of medieval notion of existence where boogeymen are behind the door, and certain people have powers that can bewitch you, and they can put spells on you. Well, we've been spelled on. We've had the Fauci spell on us, and it worked. And it's still working because there are people demanding that masks still be worn when it's definitive. That it makes no sense whatsoever, right? It's like the whole masking and distance and all that shit on an invisible little creature or whatever it is. It makes no sense. But the notion that it's possible there is now, as much as it's succeeded, there is also a backlash of people realizing how phony the whole thing is, how reality, not saying that people are not hurt in all of these orchestrated events. It's not like musical chairs and you just lose your chair. No, you lose your life when you take the injection. The excess deaths, as Dr. Campbell has reported on, are off the chart, the excess deaths, and it's just being brushed under the carpet. So you can formulate your own opinions on why this is occurring. Some people are convinced that they're out to get us and get rid of us. If they wanted to do that, it would have already happened. I don't think they are trying to get rid of people on Earth to the extent that some of the truthers are saying. Yeah, they want to get rid of 3/4 or 90% of the population. I don't think so, but that doesn't mean people are not affected, or actually ultimately affected by the programs that are being run on us. So my thought on this alien thing is that it would be, if they can pull it off with a modicum of what appears to be real, as Elon Musk said, it must be real because it looks so fake. We've been set up to accept something that looks so fake to be real. You see, this is why he said what he said. And he is an operative. I mean, he's not rich because he's so clever. It's shown. He was funded, and Peter Thiel was one of the original, I think he was the financier behind Elon Musk in the beginning. By the way, Peter Thiel in an anagram is the reptile. So I thought that was rather hilarious and funny. So the idea that people are getting wise, like myself, I'm getting wise to them, doesn't mean they wouldn't have plans to deal with people like me as well. But we need to be vigilant and ready for we don't need to know specifically what might happen, but we need to have a resilience, as a kind of spiritual resilience. A lot of people talk about this. I think people that are familiar with being confronted by extreme circumstances, like even soldiers who are able to survive under very difficult circumstances, like that, those survival techniques, that there is a level, and I'm talking about a spiritual survival here, that we don't capitulate to the reality that is being asserted and promoted on a daily level, and especially when it comes to things like aliens or moon landings, or a lonely shooter kills the king. All those things have been building up in the population that is allied with me. The spirits, uh, the mutual understanding that people like me have about what has happened before, that clearly indicates we are being run uh, in a way that is quite complex in many ways, but also quite obvious. So yeah, I think that more thoughts on this alien thing, which is ratcheting up like the shit show. Within the first few days or a week, I made a presentation. I said, this is not for real. There's something else going on. And I would say that this is not real from the point of view that there are beings that enter our space, our air, from the vacuum of space, which has never been proven. The ball idea, all that, I'm open to living on a ball, but it's never been proven because all the imageries are all phony. They're all fake. They're CGI. The space station shit, all that stuff is clearly CGI. If they were on the level, they would just follow our demands. And let's say, for example, let's fly across the Antarctic and document it, or let's have a group of people, independent people, maybe 100 or so, that'll verify with their own technologies that this flight has gone from one side of Antarctica, starting in New Zealand, all the way over to Argentina. Let's have that flight. Let's do it. And I'm going to shut up. I'm going to shut up right away and say, yeah, hallelujah, we live on this ball. But they'll never do it because it's not true. In the same way that the vacuum of space, whatever is out there, there's obviously something, but it's not what they're telling us. So until they come clean, and by they'll never come clean because it's to their disadvantage. It's basically like what is involved. Not a Robespierre thing, but a spiritual revolution of some kind where people regain their honesty and integrity as human beings, able to have an exchange without trying to cut your throat, without trying to kill you, just because you believe or think differently. Until we get to that point, we don't have a chance. We really don't have a chance because the bastards are ruling the roost. As long as people like the Clayton and his wife there get at each other, it's like we don't have a chance. Even people who are allied and they come together in the end, and yeah. But my sense of all of this is like a spiritual revolution is required from the point of view of honesty, conscience, integrity. This has to take hold across the whole base. I would say like 80-90% of the population has to actually, not just like 30%, it has to happen in a massive way. In my lifetime, I doubt it, but I'll still make my presentations. I'll just say how I see things unfolding, and the alien thing is going to be a huge psyop. Space aliens from the vacuum of space are not going to travel here 10 the supposed light years and then crash something in the desert. Come on, that's so insane. It's crazy. They're so stupid they can't land properly, right? And then they walk around like these ugly little things that if you know what, if I were to paint a picture of this space alien thing, they would be absolutely gorgeous. That's what I think. They would be just phenomenal. The beauty, if this was in fact true, we're in a ball and there's space out there and lots of other balls, and these entities can come over light years as we understand it, and they stand in front of us, they would be absolutely gorgeous. That's what I think. They wouldn't be like this ugly shithead with the funny eyeballs and the rotten skin, you know, whatever they presented us with, which is part of the psyop. I think it's part of the idea to get us worked up about the ugliness. It's sort of like Alien. They called it Alien because Alien was like really offensive and brutal and vicious, horrible. And the same idea exists here with this story they're trying to pull off. And yeah, well, it's um, I think I think a lot of people are ready for it, but are not maybe thinking about it. But now they're going to be forced to think about it, and we're going to see something probably in the next year, maybe sooner. This is going to become mainstream because we need to be distracted again, like we were with the test. With the test, the shit show was a test to see how far we could be pushed, and I would say 70, 60, 70% of the population at least, and with some soft ones in there, like maybe if you count the soft ones, maybe 80, 85% of the population was pushed into capitulation, which is frightening. I mean, I have to be honest, it's frightening. It's scary. It's like Nazi Germany and making people out to be just because they're breathing and they're alive, they're a threat to you. So yeah, the Alien card is now ratcheting up. And just I'll attach a link to the Redacted program, and you can see them sort of listening to these poor people talking about the shit that they're involved in. It's all about what's happening on Earth. It's the degenerates on Earth carrying out their programs. That's what it is. It's not from somewhere else.